Hi, this is Misty at LoveThatShot.com. In this video, I'm going to show you how to get creative with photo textures in Photoshop. This is going to be so much fun, so let's get started. The first thing I need to do is open my photo. So I'm going to click on it, drag, and drop it onto my Photoshop software. One thing that I love to do on a lot of my vintage style types of photos, when I want to make them look a little bit more like they were taken in the past, I do a desaturation technique that kind of takes away the color but then brings it back. So we're going to start off by doing that. What I want to do is create a hue saturation adjustment layer. I'm going to take the saturation all the way down to -100. Then I'm going to take the opacity down to 48%. Then I'm going to duplicate this background layer by clicking Ctrl J, and then I'm going to move it above the adjustment layer I just made. Then I'm going to set the blend mode to soft light. See how it took away the color, but then it brought some back in? That's just one little technique that I like to do when I want to make a photo look a little more vintage. Now I'm going to start off by adding my first texture. I'm going to click Texture Infusion and hit play. The first texture I'm going to put on is called Kupu Kupu from the Kalani collection. I'm going to hit place. Then I'll just resize it over my photo and double click. Then I'm going to change the blend mode to hard light and take the opacity down to about 55%. Then I'm going to select the white area for the mask. I'm going to hit X on my keyboard to make sure that the black is showing, and then I'm going to select my brush at 50% and just kind of brush the texture off of the girl. Next, I want to get rid of the texture over her skin because texture on skin just looks nasty. So I'm going to hit Smoothing and click play. Now I want to make sure that the white color swatch is showing so that I'm revealing the smoothing action. So I'll hit X on the keyboard, and then I'll just start painting over her skin and sometimes hair. Now I'm ready for my next texture, so I'll hit Texture Infusion and click play. Then this one I want to add the Kiki texture from the Kalani collection. I'll hit place. Then resize the texture over the photo and double click and change this to hard light as well and make the opacity about 62%. Now it's looking pretty odd, but it will get better. Just stick with me. I'm going to add another texture just right on top of it. So I'll hit Texture Infusion again and play. Now the texture I want to add is called Honey, and I'll place that on, resize, and double click. Now this one I'm going to leave at soft light blending mode, but I'll take the opacity down to about 75%, and then I'm going to smooth over the skin areas. There's not a huge difference on real dark textures, but I have a trick that I'm going to show you here in just a minute. So now that I have my smoothing done, I'm going to minimize my action palette so I can see more of my layers. I'm going to select everything by clicking the top layer, holding Shift, clicking the bottom layer. Then I right click, duplicate layers, then right click on the layers, and merge layers. And I'm going to move this layer on top of the Kiki texture that I added earlier. I'm going to link these two layers together. So I'll hit Alt on my keyboard and hover right in between the layers and click. Now I want to apply a blur, and that's going to get rid of some texture over the skin areas and create kind of a foggy, misty feeling. So we'll hit Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and then we'll just slide that all the way up until we get the effect that we want. See how it makes just this foggy feeling over the whole photo? I like how this is looking, so I'll keep it about there and click OK. Now I want to paint back in the texture around the edges and leave this part blurred. So I'm going to add a layer mask to this layer by clicking the layer mask button at the bottom. Now I want to make sure that my black is showing, so I'll hit X on the keyboard. And then I want to make my soft round brush bigger, so I'll hit the right bracket key on my keyboard till that's about right. I'll leave the opacity about 50%, and then I'll just paint back in some of these texture areas. And you'll see how it brought in the texture in these corners. That's exactly what I want. And that's it. That's a creative technique that I like to use when I'm working on a vintage style, or when I'm working on a photo that I want to make look vintage, like it might have been taken back a few years ago. And that's it. I hope you enjoy using these texture infusion actions on your own photos.